15 minutes before impact, Pumpkin uttered 7 words that would haunt everyone who heard them. Words so precise they seemed to predict her own fate. Words that investigators initially dismissed as coincidence until a forensic audio specialist discovered something impossible buried in the background of that final recording. What he found changed everything we thought we knew about that night. I need to be direct with you from the start, because what we're about to explore exists in a strange territory between verified facts and deeply unsettling questions. The person at the center of this story was known online as Pumpkin, a rising social media creator whose real name was Melissa Hartwood. On February 14, 2026, she was involved in a single vehicle collision on Route 7 just outside Burlington, Vermont. She was 23 years old. The police report lists the cause as driver error, compounded by icy road conditions. Her vehicle, a 2024 Honda Civic, left the roadway at approximately 9:47 in the evening and struck a tree. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Those are the facts that nobody disputes. But facts only tell you what happened. They don't tell you why. And they certainly don't explain the recording that surfaced 3 days after the crash, a recording that wasn't supposed to exist, that Pumpkin's phone should have been too damaged to preserve, yet somehow did. Let me take you back 6 weeks before that February night, because that's when people who knew Pumpkin started noticing changes. Her content had always been upbeat, the kind of wholesome lifestyle material that attracted 500,000 loyal subscribers. Morning routines, thrift hauls, simple recipes, the occasional heartfelt talk about anxiety or self-acceptance. Nothing controversial, nothing dark. But in early January, her energy shifted. Comments on her videos from that period tell the story. "Where's the usual spark?" one viewer asked. "You seem distracted," wrote another. Several people mentioned that her eyes looked different, that she seemed to be looking past the camera rather than into it. Her best friend, Kayla Simmons, later told investigators that Pumpkin, that Melissa, had become obsessed with what she called patterns. Not the aesthetic kind she usually featured in her content, but patterns in time, in conversations, in the way events seem to echo each other. Kayla described having coffee with her on January 9th. Melissa had pulled out her phone and shown Kayla a note filled with timestamps and seemingly random observations. The barista said good morning at 8:17, and so did the woman at the post office, but in the exact same tone Melissa had written. 3 cars passed going north, all silver, all Toyotas. The song playing here played yesterday at this exact time. Kayla admitted she had laughed it off, suggested maybe Melissa needed a break from screens, from the pressure of constant content creation. Melissa had smiled, put her phone away, and changed the subject. But Kayla noticed her friend's hand was shaking as she lifted her coffee cup. Now, here's where I need to separate what we know from what people have claimed. We know that on February 10th, 4 days before the crash, Pumpkin posted a video that her management team had initially refused to let her upload. We have confirmation of this from 2 sources, her manager David Chen and her video editor Marcus Powell. Both insisted the video was too off-brand, too strange, potentially alarming to her audience, but Melissa had final approval in her contracts. She posted it anyway. The video has since been made private by her estate, but over 200,000 people saw it during the 36 hours it remained public, and many recorded it. I've watched it multiple times. I'm going to describe it to you exactly as it appears because there are already dozens of false versions circulating with added effects or altered audio. The real version is disturbing enough without embellishment. The video is titled simply February Thoughts. Melissa sits in her usual filming spot, the small reading nook by her apartment window, natural light coming from the left side of the frame, but she's not centered the way she normally positions herself. She's slightly off to the right, and there's a visible gap in the frame to her left, just empty space. She's wearing a gray sweater, no makeup. Her hair is pulled back. She looks tired, but calm, unnervingly calm. She doesn't start with her usual greeting. Instead, she begins mid-thought, as if continuing a conversation already in progress. I've been trying to understand the difference between premonition and pattern recognition, she says. Her voice is steady, quiet. When you see something coming, is it because some part of you exists slightly ahead in time? Or is it because you finally learned to read the signs that were always there? She pauses. 10 full seconds of silence, where she just looks at the camera. Then she continues. I keep having this dream. I'm driving at night, and I absolutely know that I need to pull over. But my hands won't move. They're on the wheel, but they're not mine anymore. And there's this sound, this specific sound that I can't describe when I'm awake, but in the dream, I understand it perfectly. It's the sound of time running out. Another pause, shorter this time. She leans forward slightly. If something happens to me, if I'm not here next week or next month, I need you to know it wasn't random. Nothing is random. We just call it random when we can't see the design yet. The video ends abruptly. No outro, no call to action, no reminder to like and subscribe. Just a cut to black. 17 minutes long. In those 17 minutes, she never once smiled. The comments section before the video was privated revealed genuine concern from her audience. Hundreds of people begged her to talk to someone, to see a therapist, to take care of herself, but mixed in with the worried messages were others, stranger ones. People claiming they'd had similar experiences, similar dreams. One commenter wrote, "I heard that sound 3 days before my brother died. I heard it in my sleep, and I've never been able to forget it." That comment received over 3,000 likes before the video disappeared. David Chen, her manager, tried to do damage control. He released a statement saying Melissa had been under stress, that she was taking time to focus on her mental health, that the video was an artistic exploration of anxiety, and didn't represent any actual crisis. But privately, according to later interviews, he was terrified. He'd known Melissa for 2 years, had managed her rise from 12,000 subscribers to 500,000. He'd never seen her like this. Now we approach the day itself, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Melissa had plans to drive to her parents' home in Stowe, about 40 minutes from her Burlington apartment. It was a trip she'd made dozens of times. She knew the route intimately. Weather reports show that while it was cold, below freezing, the roads had been cleared and salted. Visibility was good. There was no precipitation at the time of the crash. She left her apartment at 9:15 p.m. We know this because her building has security cameras that timestamp entry and exit. She's visible in the footage, wearing a dark winter coat, carrying a small overnight bag, walking at a normal pace to her car. She doesn't look distressed. She doesn't look afraid. She looks, if anything, resigned. That's the word several people have used when describing this footage. Resigned. She was alone in the car. This has been verified beyond any doubt. Traffic cameras along Route 7 captured her vehicle at 2 points during the drive. Both times, she's the only person visible in the car. This matters because of what comes next. At 9:32 p.m., Melissa called Kayla. The call lasted 6 minutes. Kayla has shared the general content of this conversation with police and later with select journalists, though not the recording itself. According to Kayla, Melissa sounded peaceful, almost happy. She talked about how much she appreciated their friendship, how grateful she was for all the good things in her life. She mentioned that she finally understood something important, but didn't elaborate. When Kayla asked what she meant, Melissa said, "You'll know when you need to know." Then she said she loved her and ended the call. At 9:41 p.m., she posted something to her private Instagram story, visible only to her close friends list of about 30 people. It was a photo taken from inside her car, the road ahead illuminated by her headlights, the dark woods pressing in on either side. The caption read, "The patterns led here. No fear anymore. Just recognition." 6 minutes later, her car left the road. The official accident reconstruction indicates she was traveling at approximately 55 miles per hour in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. Not speeding significantly. She didn't brake. There were no skid marks. The vehicle simply drifted to the right, left the pavement, traveled approximately 40 feet over frozen ground, and struck a large oak tree nearly head-on. The impact was catastrophic. First responders arrived within 8 minutes. There was nothing they could do. Her phone was found in the wreckage. The screen was shattered, the casing cracked, but the device itself was still functioning. When investigators accessed it hours later, they found that it had been recording audio at the time of the crash. Melissa had activated a voice memo at 9:43 p.m., and it had continued recording until 9:50 p.m., when the phone's battery finally died. This is the recording I mentioned at the beginning. This is where those 7 words come in. And this is where everything becomes almost unbearably strange. The audio is difficult to listen to for obvious reasons. There's road noise, the hum of the engine, the sound of tires on pavement. Melissa is breathing normally. For the first minute, there's no speech at all. Then, at timestamp 1 minute 12 seconds, she begins to speak. Her voice is clear, conversational, as if talking to someone. "I see it now," she says. "I see how it connects." More silence. Just driving sounds. Then, at 2 minutes 37 seconds, you'll come back to this moment. When you understand, you'll come back here. Investigators initially assumed she was recording thoughts for a future video, the way many creators do, talking through ideas while driving. But the phrasing was odd. "You'll come back to this moment," not "I'll come back, you'll come back." At 3 minutes 51 seconds, she says, "I'm not afraid. That's what they need to know. Tell them I wasn't afraid." More silence. Another 30 seconds. Then, at 4 minutes, 21 seconds, those 7 words. "I can see you in the back seat now." Let that sink in for a moment. I can see you in the back seat now. But she was alone. Every piece of evidence confirms this. Traffic cameras show no passenger. The car was locked from the inside. There was no one else injured, no one else found at the scene. She was absolutely, definitively alone. The audio continues. There's a slight change in the engine noise, possibly her foot lifting off the accelerator. Then a new sound enters the recording, and this is what the forensic audio specialist found. It's faint, very faint, underneath all the other noise. It sounds almost like breathing, but not quite in rhythm with Melissa's breathing. A separate pattern of inhalation and exhalation. The specialist, a man named Dr. Trevor Yates, who has worked on criminal cases for 15 years, submitted a report that was leaked to the press 3 weeks ago. In it, he states that he isolated the secondary breathing sound and analyzed its characteristics. According to his findings, it doesn't match the acoustic signature of wind noise, mechanical vibration, or audio compression artifacts. It sounds, he wrote, like a second person breathing quietly in an enclosed space. But here's what makes his report so controversial. He ran the audio through a program that analyzes temporal consistency. Essentially, it measures whether a sound is occurring in real time or has been inserted from another source. Background sounds in authentic recordings have tiny, almost imperceptible variations that prove they're genuine. According to Dr. Yates, the breathing sound has these variations. His professional opinion, stated clearly in the report, is that this was a real sound, recorded in real time, in the car with Melissa. The final seconds of the recording are the hardest to hear. There's a slight gasp from Melissa, not fear exactly, more like recognition. Then the sound of the impact, brutal and final, followed by silence, then the faint crackle of the damaged phone still recording nothing but its own dying processes. The authorities released their final report on March 3, 2026. Cause of death was massive trauma consistent with motor vehicle collision. Manner of death was ruled accidental, with a note that driver distraction or possible medical episode could not be ruled out. The strange audio was mentioned in supplementary materials, but dismissed as likely being artifacts of the damaged recording system. The case was closed, but Melissa's family has not accepted this conclusion. Her father, Robert Hartwood, retained a private investigator and has been vocal in media interviews about his belief that something else happened that night. "My daughter was not suicidal," he stated in an interview 2 weeks ago. "She was not reckless, and she sure as hell wouldn't talk about seeing someone in her back seat unless she saw someone in her back seat." The private investigator, a former state police detective named Sarah Ochoa, has focused on a detail most people overlooked. In the weeks before the crash, Melissa's social media accounts showed login attempts from unknown devices, 3 different IP addresses, none matching her home, her phone, or any location she was known to frequent. The attempts were unsuccessful, her passwords held, but someone was trying to access her digital life. Ochoa has also interviewed nearly everyone in Melissa's close friend circle, and a pattern emerged in these conversations. Multiple people mentioned that Melissa had talked about feeling watched, not in a paranoid way, several clarified, but as a statement of fact. She'd mention it casually. "I think someone's been following my accounts pretty closely," she'd told her cousin in late January, or "I keep seeing the same car," she'd mentioned to a neighbor. Details that seemed unremarkable individually, but together suggested something more concerning. Then, there's the question of the dream she mentioned in that final public video, the sound of time running out. After the crash, a Reddit thread emerged where people who'd watched her video shared their own experiences. Dozens of accounts, many from throwaway usernames, describing nearly identical dreams. Driving at night, hands on the wheel but not in control, and a sound they couldn't quite describe. Some of these posts were made before Melissa's crash, dated to early February. They couldn't have been influenced by her videos because they predated it. Skeptics, and there are many, point out that anxiety dreams about loss of control are incredibly common. That once Melissa's video brought attention to this specific imagery, confirmation bias led people to remember their own similar dreams more vividly. This is probably true for many of the accounts, but it doesn't explain the ones posted before she ever mentioned it publicly. We're now more than 2 months past that February night, and new information continues to surface. Just last week, a woman named Teresa Kim came forward with a statement that's currently being investigated. She claims she was driving on Route 7 on the night of February 14th, about 10 minutes ahead of Melissa. She says she saw a car pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights on, and a figure standing beside it waving as if needing help. She didn't stop, something she says she regrets, but continued driving. When she reached the area where Melissa's crash occurred, passing by before it happened, she noticed the pulled-over car and the figure were gone. She's certain of the timeline because she was heading to a 9:30 movie showing and checked her clock multiple times. If her account is accurate, it raises questions. Was someone else on that road that night staging a distraction or creating a scenario that might cause a driver to swerve or stop suddenly? Ochoa is working to verify Kim's statement through traffic camera footage, but that stretch of Route 7 has limited camera coverage. What we're left with is a tapestry of verified facts interwoven with threads of the unexplainable. A young woman who seemed to sense something approaching. A recording that captured words suggesting she wasn't alone. Audio evidence that a specialist believes indicates another presence, a pattern of behavior in her final weeks that showed either deteriorating mental health or genuine perception of something others couldn't see. I've thought a lot about which interpretation is more frightening. If Melissa was experiencing a psychological break, it's a tragedy, a bright life cut short by invisible illness that nobody caught in time. But if she was perceiving something real, something that led her to that specific place at that specific time, then we have to confront possibilities that don't fit into our comfortable understanding of how the world works. Her final video remains private, but those of us who saw it can't forget her eyes, the way she looked at the camera with such certainty. "Nothing is random," she said. "We just call it random when we can't see the design yet." Was there a design to what happened on Route 7? Was Melissa Hartwood reading patterns that actually existed, or creating them from the static of coincidence? Did she drive off that road because her hands wouldn't respond, just like in her dream? Or did she choose that moment with full awareness and intention? Her family deserves answers. Her friends deserve closure. Her hundreds of thousands of followers who felt they knew her deserve to understand. But perhaps some stories don't end with answers. Perhaps they end with better questions. If you've stayed with me this long, you understand that this story matters beyond one person's tragedy. It touches on something deeper about premonition, about the thin places where certainty breaks down, about whether consciousness can perceive things that haven't happened yet. Melissa believed she could. In her final hours, she seemed at peace with whatever she'd discovered. I think about those 7 words constantly. I can see you in the backseat now. Not I think I see. Not I'm imagining. I can see you. Present tense, definitive. And now, as if whatever she was perceiving had just materialized, or had been there all along and she'd finally allowed herself to acknowledge it. The investigation continues privately, even as official channels have moved on. Sarah Ochoa told me in a recent conversation that she's following several leads that might explain the login attempts and the sensation of being followed. She believes there may have been a real person, a real threat, that Melissa was responding to in those final weeks. Someone who cultivated an obsessive interest in her, who learned her patterns, who might have been on that road. It's a theory grounded in the terrible reality of what sometimes happens to young women with public profiles. But Ochoa also admitted something else. She said that when she listened to the audio recording in full, In a quiet room with professional headphones, she heard something the official reports didn't mention. Just before Melissa says, "I can see you in the back seat now," there's the faintest sound of movement. The subtle shift of weight on a seat. The whisper of fabric. A presence settling into space. Your job now, if you choose to accept it, is to decide what you believe. Look at the evidence. Consider the possibilities. And ask yourself what you would do if you started noticing patterns, if dreams began to feel like warnings, if you sensed a presence just beyond your peripheral vision. Melissa Hartwood was a real person. She lived 23 years. She created joy for hundreds of thousands of people. She had favorite songs and comfort foods and inside jokes with her best friend. She deserves to be remembered as a full human being, not reduced to a mystery or a ghost story. But she also deserves for us to take her seriously, to consider that maybe she knew something, saw something, understood something that the rest of us are still blind to. In honoring her memory, we honor the possibility that reality is stranger and more vast than our daily lives suggest. If this story has affected you, share it. Keep the conversation alive. Support the Hartwood family's search for answers. And maybe, just maybe, pay attention to your own patterns, to the moments that feel like echoes, to the dreams that seem too specific to be random. Melissa whispered her truth in those final moments. The least we can do is listen,